So hello to everyone. My name is Marty Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, How to Make Your Surveillance System Proactive Rather Than Reactive in Active Shooter Scenarios and Beyond. Today's webinar will focus on next-gen active shooter detection and response. Active shooter and other forms of violence are unfortunately escalating and often deadly threats to our organizations, and importantly, the people that depend on us to keep them safe and secure: students, employees, visitors, and everyone else. It's front page news. During this webinar, we're going to discuss how we can digitally transform a historically reactive, manual, error-prone process of threat detection and communication that often results in horrific casualties into a real-time, automated, data-driven response that can accurately predict impending violence before the first shot is fired. And using the Scylla Alertus new automated integration, alert people of life-threatening danger before it occurs. An integration that allows you to predict future events before they happen. Before we begin, I'd like to mention this webinar is being recorded, and we will be making a copy available to all attendees and all registrars. And what I'd like you to do is possibly spread the word to your colleagues if they may be interested. And finally, if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in chat. And if we do not have time, we will reach out to you after the webinar with answers. We will also have our contact info at the end of the webinar. Let's go on to the bios. Okay, I'm Marty Fox. Amanda Sassano is one of my panelists, an expert in technology and communications with Alertus, and Kris Greiner is the VP of Sales for Skyla. Next. So I'm a critical solutions advisor. I'm the director of critical technology solutions for a $19 billion company, Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. I'm also a 14-time best-selling technology author. My books have been read in 40 countries around the world. Importantly, I face just about every type of critical event there is. Hurricanes, tornadoes, even volcano in Hawaii. And one of the most pressing for me, and it's always been of special interest to me, are active shooter events. I've been writing about active shooter events since Columbine, and I have always talked about bringing next generation tools in to help us. I wrote about it a couple of years ago in a book that I had, The Ultimate Business Continuity Success Guide. And a lot of the things I predicted with sensors and what we're doing today even goes beyond it, have come to fruition. Fun fact, I demonstrated resilience in a personal life-threatening injury that I had in basketball. I pivoted to race walking. I won a couple national medals. And the way I did it was through a data-driven digital process. Next slide. Okay. Amanda Sensano is the Senior Director of Commercial Sales and Partnerships with Alertus Technologies. She's been there for 7 years and has vast knowledge and experience in the mass notification space, helping organizations address their critical communication needs. Welcome, Amanda. Next slide, please. Kris Greiner he's the VP of Sales North America for Skyla, over 30 years experience in technology, over 10 years in security, experience working with many of the world's largest organizations in different industries, including energy, manufacturing, education, law enforcement, and technology. Next screen, please. So what we're going to do now, Kris is going to walk us through a little bit about Scylla, a little bit about the value of Scylla, and then Amanda is going to talk about Alertus, and then we are going to jump into a deep Q&A asking hard questions. Kris, stage is yours.
Thank you, Marty. Now, let me start off by saying a little bit about Scylla and who we are and what we do. Scylla is a software developer. We develop AI-powered video analytics for real-time threat detection. So what we're doing is we are evaluating video streams and video cameras in real time. We monitor those streams and we watch for objects, actions, and behavior anomalies. So that allows us to identify things like guns, knives, fights, intruders, masks, bags left behind, slips and falls, anything that is related to physical security. And so that is our niche. And when there is a alert has been identified, then we send a notification to either the VMS that the organization is using in their monitoring facility, or we will send it to our dashboard that can be used as well, our browser-based dashboard. We also have a mobile app for both iOS and Android for any people that are in the field that need that real-time identification or that real update. We also can send out alerts via SMS texting, email. So there's any number of ways that it can be customized for that customer and how they would like to, or that organization, how they want to receive those alerts.
Okay, Kris, thank you very much. Amanda, can you tell us about Alertus? And I know you do amazing things because I use it hands-on. Stage is yours.
Yeah, thanks everybody. And I think we had a slide or two, but either way, welcome. Thank you for joining today. I am with Alertus Technologies. We are a leading provider in facility-based mass notification. So complementary to the traditional, mass notification solutions on the personal side and other security elements, but ultimately what we are focused on is notifying areas of space. So in the event of any critical incident or emergency situation, or even just business continuity and communication throughout your organization, we can simplify that, automate that communication across multiple endpoints, and ensure that you are notifying everyone in and around the facility, not just employees, but even guests in the facility, contractors. There's a lot of different components when it comes to every type of facilities challenges that they kind of have to deal with on a daily basis. So like I mentioned, our really niche is that facility side of notification and leveraging any and all technology that you have deployed throughout to simplify, unify, and create that a single point of activation in the event of an incident.
Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate it. And I'm glad you mentioned business continuity because I know a lot of my friends are going to be attending. So now we're going to go into the Q&A portion of it. And I am going to ask Amanda and Kris and both of them for some answers to questions that as a practitioner I ask, as a technologist I ask, and we'll go through them. Okay, Amanda, beside what you talked about before, can you please describe at a high level what the value Alertus brings to organizations' safety and security? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a safety and security standpoint, typically organizations have many infrastructure assets that are tied to physical security. And typically they have disparate systems, and it can take some time to coordinate an activation, no matter how prepared an organization may feel that they are. So what Alertus is able to do specifically with security professionals is work with and assess what they have in place, where we can tie into that, unify that communication, and essentially take their response times from minutes down to seconds.
Thank you. So Kris, same question. Can you describe at a high level the value that Skyla brings to organization safety and security? You maybe touching on, the neat technology you're using that is really transformational, like AI, ML, camera vision, behavioral analytics. You're using all that stuff, right?
We are, and we're using AI to turn somebody's security system or their surveillance system that's already in place. We turn it from a reactive solution to a proactive solution. So, for example, historically, people have video cameras that are out silently recording, right? Something bad happens, you go back, you check the footage, and you say, yep, this is the bad guy, this is when it happened. And those are used for forensic purposes. But what we do is we turn that existing security system, those existing cameras, into proactive. So it's almost like having, if somebody has 100 cameras, right, or 1,000 cameras, it's impossible for a human to watch every camera live and in real time. But our AI can do that, right? So our AI will sit and watch every camera 24/7 and watch specifically for the alerts or those threats that organization tells us to watch for. And it's the AI doing it. We are not a monitoring service or a monitoring facility. It's the AI that will sit and replace that human's responsibility for watching those. And when we see a threat, like a gun, a knife, a fight, something like that, then we trigger a real-time alert. It goes to security, to police, to Alertus, whatever that organization wants to do with it. And then, when every second counts, that real-time notification really adds to the security for that organization.
Perfect. Amanda and Kris, one of the things that, can you tell us about the end-to-end integration, how it works between your solutions now? Do you have a roadmap for the future? And I will say that as a technologist, when, I'm teching out products and I hear integration, there's a lot of ways to do integration. When you guys mentioned you're using the Alertus API for each system to talk to each other, that lit me up. So can you talk about the integration a little bit?
Sure, I'll start, Amanda, if that's okay, because what happens, I'll use an active shooter scenario or situation as the example. So if we are monitoring cameras in a parking lot of a school or a organization, a factory, whatever it may be, and that active shooter pulls into the parking lot and they get out of their car and they step out, they grab their weapon, they grab their gun, and they start walking to the front door. What happens is Skyla, if we're monitoring those cameras in the parking lot, we're going to identify that weapon or that gun, and at the same time we'll identify or that person of interest as an active shooter. And so then we lock onto that person, we identify him as an active shooter, and then immediately we can go out and we will trigger Alertus and notify them that there's an active shooter in progress or there's a threat has been identified. And then we can hand that off to Alertus for their real-time unified messaging and crisis response. And at the same time, all of that's happening, we can access the remote access, we can lock the front door, we can track that active shooter as he's moving from camera to camera to camera throughout the facility or the campus, always keeping eyes on him, giving constant updates to Alertus as to where that person is. And so security and law enforcement at that point will know where that person is or that threat is by way of Alertus, where we do the handoff.
Yep, and to add to that, thanks, Kris. Through the API, to Kris's point, we can automate all of that communication. So all of that pre-planning and kind of thinking through your emergency response plans is done on the front end, and then our team support in configuring the solution so that kind of if this happens, then do that behavior, if you will. So it can all be streamlined and automated through the API.
Great. So let's play on that a little bit more. A lot of these events are over in active shooter events, unfortunately, in 5 minutes or less. And the old school way, hey, maybe watching a camera, maybe seeing somebody, maybe finding that needle in a haystack. Can you give me an approximation end to end from Scylla to Alertus, maybe hitting desktop pop-ups, which we'll talk about later, and wall beacons? What are we talking about? Are we talking about 6 minutes, 4 minutes? What's the end to end in your estimation?
Well, from Skyla's perspective, we're identifying that threat or that weapon or that active shooter in milliseconds. And so for our on-premise solutions, all of that video is being examined locally on-premise, and a second or in milliseconds, we identify that weapon, that threat. We remember the characteristics of what that person looks like. We say, okay, you know, you're wearing a white striped shirt, blue jeans, dark hair. Just like your brain would remember what somebody looks like, that's what Scylla does. Our AI will take an image of that person, remember what they look like, and then tell every camera on the system to watch for that person as he moves about the campus. And the entire time we're sending those updates to Alertus, so Alertus can broadcast out to everybody on the system. They can be aware of what's going on and take appropriate action.
Yep, and then from the Alertus perspective, whenever we are pulling that information in through our integration, our average activation time to hit our endpoints or any endpoint that we are leveraging is anywhere from 5 to 13 seconds. So very, very quickly, we aren't even getting close to the minutes arena. So it happens pretty much instantaneous.
Yeah, and I've tested the Alertus portion, and I've had many times where it was even lower. You know, it pretty much just lit people up how quickly we could hit a wall beacon and to go end to end. You know, from Skyla to Alertus, it's pretty amazing. So, you know, you both talked about, you know, tracking somebody. Can you give us maybe an example, first of all, about if somebody breaches security, okay, and they're traveling around, are you using facial recognition, or I heard you have some proprietary algorithms as well that you're using? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The way that we will identify a potential threat, we can do it a couple of different ways. We can identify them based on their physical characteristics, as I mentioned earlier. Just what is your physical appearance, like the brain would remember. And then we also have the ability to identify them via facial recognition or a combination of both. There's some organizations or places that don't want to use facial recognition. We don't require that to lock on and identify that person. So it all depends on the organization, what their goals are. If we want to be really accurate, we'll use the physical attributes of the person along with facial recognition, but you can use one or the other or both to track an individual.
Okay, great. This is for both of my panelists. Are organizations globally enjoying your solutions? And can you, I know it's sensitive sometimes, but could you give some examples of who might be using it or some use cases?
Sure, happy to do that. We are a global organization. We have installations all over the world. And I can tell you some notable names that everybody would recognize in different verticals. So in hospitals, for example, University of Southern California hospitals. In manufacturing, Daimler is using us. In K-12, Clark County school districts, the 5th largest school district in the country, 330,000 students, 66 high schools. In professional sports were used by the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field. In a corporate environment, Major League Baseball uses us to protect their corporate headquarters. If we get outside the United States, Colombia in South America, the Medellin Federal Police use us on their drones because we support moving backgrounds. So they use us on their drones and their helicopters to identify intruders, especially intruders with weapons or guns. In airports, the Oman airports in the Middle East, the Thailand Ministry of Defense. There are a ton of different organizations across the globe that are using us to protect their organizations.
Yep, and from the Alertus standpoint, we're upwards of 2,000 plus customers. Most of them are centralized in the North and South American areas, but we do have a number of global companies, whether they are headquartered abroad and or have, say, corporate entities or large manufacturing outfits that have locations globally. So supporting both domestic and international customers today.
Okay. Amanda, could you talk a little bit about the desktop pop-up? I know some organizations with thousands and thousands of employees have it on every desktop. You know, a lot of us, you know, because of, you know, malware, things like that, we've told our employees, you know, don't click on certain things. Can we customize the desktop pop-up with our own logos and our brand colors?
Yep, great question. Absolutely. So this is a request that we have and support our customers in configuring probably daily, so that it is something that is familiar to their employees and it's not, you know, recognized as spam or an intruder trying to breach the network. So you can custom brand it so that it is recognizable to your employees, as well as kind of a step further, thinking about cybersecurity. Our solutions all operate and can operate behind your firewalls. So there's another layer of security. The communication is encrypted as well. So there's many layers that we've thought through for many, many years and have, you know, customers in the federal and military space and beyond that are secure facilities. So we've kind of thought through all of those different variables and can provide that level of security for our customers.
Hey, Amanda, one follow-up on that. What if we want to do an audible sound?
Yeah, on the desktop, you can. So you can override the speakers. There's a setting within the software that can enable that. But absolutely, you can override both the screen and the speakers on the devices.
Okay, great. This one is for Kris, and this really interests me a lot. We have a large campus and got this question with more than 300 cameras, but there are areas without cameras. Can Scylla use mobile cameras, for example, robots and/or drones?
Absolutely. Scylla works with moving backgrounds. So as I mentioned earlier, we can support drones, body cams, dash cams, helicopters, robots. It makes no difference to us. We don't have to have a fixed camera. And in addition to that, pan, tilt, zoom. So as people are moving around with their PTZs and scanning and zooming in and out, we can do our detections with that as well. We work with all existing legacy cameras that are already in place. So in order to activate the system, you don't have to run out and buy new cameras. We can work with the cameras that are in place, and you know, like anything else, the better the camera, the better the result, the farther you can reach out. So if we have an older, low resolution CCTV camera, right? We can do things like smoke and fire detection on it, or identify a human intruder or a vehicle where we may not be able to do any sort of facial recognition or small object recognition like a small handgun, because just by nature, those cameras are poor quality. But we can still use those for certain detections. Now, the better the camera, if you want to start getting detections, facial recognition for object recognition, that starts at about just an average 2 meg 1080 HD camera. And you get the detection range that you would expect out of a camera like that, roughly about 25 feet before the image starts pixelating. And the higher the megapixels on the camera, the farther it reaches out. So 4K camera, you could reach out maybe 50 yards. An 8K camera, you could reach out 100 yards for just a small object or facial recognition. And then because the resolution is so small, we have what we call our eagle eye, can zoom in on any object that the AI sees that a human eye can't, and it'll zoom in and blow that up for security to see. So we work with all existing cameras. We can work with edge devices. So if there's something out there and you're processing on the edge, we can do event filtering. So when that thumbnail, that clip, or that little video stream is transmitted over cellular data or satellite where data is premium, we can analyze all of those embedded analytics in its cameras, filter those out, and actually send a real detection to security, opposed to any false alerts like a dog, a piece of trash, a cloud, spider, things that typically set off those motion detectors, or weak analytics that are embedded in the cameras themselves.
Thank you. Amanda, We have noisy manufacturing plants. Workers may not hear their mobile phones with an alert. The usual endpoints, you know, of SMS and email, they may not even be able to bring their phones in. What are our options to alert these people so that they receive a critical message?
Great question. So we actually at Alertus have a patented product called our Alert Beacon, which is ADA compliant, so has the visual and audible notification capabilities. Those are heavily used in areas where there is a noise, a challenge with noise, or a challenge with folks having a personal device or any real assignable infrastructure on them. We have also other visual alerting components, from strobes to digital displays to LED marquees. So we have quite a bit of visual notification assets for that exact reason, whether it's a manufacturing facility and or a specialized environment like a lab area, or you know, a hazardous area where folks aren't able to have personal communication endpoints on them. So there's a lot of, and to be honest, not that we have sort of a sweet spot, but folks that, or organizations that have those vulnerabilities and those challenges, our solutions are a great fit because, like I mentioned before, we're able to integrate with their infrastructure, able to tie into their you know, surveillance software and things, automate that communication and ensure that no matter what type of environment they are, they have both that visual and audible communication in the areas that require that based on the challenges for their facility.
Thank you. And from personal use, I've used wall beacons and they are amazing. Very, very cool. So easy to set up. Okay, Kris, important one here. We have invested in 578 cameras. Is there a possibility of leveraging these cameras with Scylla?
The answer is yes. All we have to do is get access to the RTSP streams of each of those cameras. And whether we go direct to the camera and access that stream, or whether we pull that through the VMS, like a Milestone, Genetec, any number of VMSs we support, we can reuse, or we can use those cameras that are already deployed in the field and use them for whatever detection they make sense for. As I mentioned earlier, the lower res cameras can be used for like intruder detection, smoke and fire, or some of the newer, you know, high definition cameras can be used for the facial recognition, for gun detection, object recognition, suspect tracking. So yeah, we could reuse every one of those cameras in some manner.
Great, great. And Amanda, this just popped in my head. It wasn't actually one of the questions that came about, but the desktop widget itself, the pop-up, that's lightweight, right? That's not taking a lot of bandwidth. That's pretty efficient, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's less than even a kilobyte of data. So it's very, very small, very invasive, or non-invasive, sorry.
Okay, fine. Another one for Amanda. In the event of an active shooter, we will want to send a desktop alert to all occupants of a particular location. We have over 300 locations. Can we identify people that work in a particular building, and can we even hit it down to the desktop?
Yes, absolutely. So our targeting can be, depending on how the organization, how they're kind of structured internally, we can target based on a few different things, grouping, IP subnet ranges, Active Directory integrations, and we can identify what folks are associated with what locations. If you are utilizing the IP subnet ranges, or if your Active Directory is tied into like your access control, you can see who is where. It can target based on that data very granularly, as well as we can target even just a single device. So if you did have an incident that you would need to be very specific, you know, we are able to do so. And in organizations that's that large, you may want to go with a more formalized grouping versus targeting a singular device, but it's definitely capable.
Okay, perfect, perfect. And I will tell you firsthand experience again, IP subranges and Active Directory, absolutely no problem as long as you have all your stuff in order on your side. Piece of cake to set up. All right, this is for both of my panelists. In addition to active shooter incidents, can you describe a couple of additional use cases for Scylla and Alertus?
So there's a lot of different things. We integrate with Okta for identity management. We have that included in every one of our installations and solutions. We provide that as part of our solution, not in addition to for additional cost. It is bundled in. And so with that additional identity management, you can use us for access control. So when a person reports for work in a shared office space, we know who they are. We can tie in, we can say, okay, you're only authorized, you're John Smith, you're authorized to get off on floors 3, 4, and 5, replace the prox card, for example. And so you get off on 3, 4, and 5, but none of the other floors. So once you get off, then you go in, we see your face at the camera, we assign you a workspace for a period of time. And we can have watch lists or accepted lists for people in different areas. For high security areas, if you're a university environment and you have research going on, we could say only the 20 people that are on our accepted list can be in this area. And if we see any other human, we're going to trigger an alert to security, as an intruder. So those are other ways that we can be used beyond just doing, detecting an active shooter in a parking lot, for example.
So Kris is really, the predictive analytics in Skyla are rubbing off on Kris a lot, because my next question was, and I don't know if you want to comment on it more, is we have 9 large data centers. We are concerned with internal cyber breaches from someone infiltrating our data center, sort of like, an insider, which, a lot of times that happens. Can Skyla and Alertus help us identify an intruder and communicate to our local security team? So that's kind of an Alertus part of it, and facility manager at the site that was breached.
The answer is yes.
Yep, absolutely.
You're in, research, intellectual property, if somebody's in an area where they shouldn't be, we have the whitelist of people that should be in that area, and the watch list for anybody that is, specific on a watch list, or if they're just not on any list, right? And they just wander into an area they shouldn't be, we can trigger that alert to alert us and start that notification process to, for security to take action.
That's perfect, perfect. And the next one is for Amanda. I think we talked it through pretty much, but I'd like to mention it because it actually relates to something that came by my desk a few days ago about, CrowdStrike identifying some malware, what we can do to a desktop to kind of, once it's cordoned off, use a pop-up to have the person, make the call that we want them to make. But I'll read you the whole question that I received. If we identify malware on a desktop through our internal security software, can we send a desktop pop-up to one desktop? I think we talked about that. And can we customize the length of the pop-up so it stays on the recipient's screen?
Yes, absolutely. So you can adjust the time that the alert is active, as well as you can make it so that they aren't able to cancel it or acknowledge it and remove it from their screen. So you can truly, ensure that that is up there for the duration of what you would want them to have that displayed. Traditionally, our desktop notifications do have an acknowledge or a dismiss button, but in that type of instance, if you did want it to run for a full duration and be ensured that it was visible for that time frame, you can essentially lock it down to where it would appear on that singular device for that amount of time.
Okay, perfect. And Amanda, does Alertus have an app endpoint for push notifications?
So we do. We have a recipient app. We have an app suite One app is an activation app, so for administrators or security folks, if you would want them to be able to activate the system on the fly. But we do have a recipient app that not only can receive push notifications, but can also report an incident back to security. So if there's kind of the see something, say something mentality, especially within organizations for safety concerns, we're able to communicate that back to security with images, or for different types of scenarios. There can be preloaded emergency numbers within the device or within the application, so that a employee would have a shortcut to a specific department or a security line. So there's many options within the recipient app, but most certainly receiving a push notification with the message that's going on for the active alert, that's the prime use.
Okay, perfect. This is an important question, and kind of like involves our leadership, and it's for both of you. Do you provide an admin dashboard where we can view metrics and run reports? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that if you do.
Yeah. Yep, go ahead, Kris.
All right, at Skyla, we have our own browser-based dashboard that we can use, or we can do one and two-way integrations with all the VMS systems. You know, we integrate with all the major ones and are adding them at customer requests. So we have full reports, and reports can be added at customer requests as well. So full view.
Yeah, and from the Alertus standpoint, we have reports that show kind of post-activation summaries of what devices were targeted, how quickly those devices received the alert, what message was it that was part of that alert, where it was initiated from, all of those metrics. We also have reports around device status, so you can be insured no matter when your system is operational, and if something were to ever come offline for whatever reason, you can be notified automatically, as well as we have real-time dashboards for active alerts. So if you think about a scenario where it's, say, a campus environment, they have multiple duress buttons, you can see all active alerts if a assailant is moving within a facility, you can kind of track that, but ultimately you can also have permissions around those and priority around those as well. So there's many different levels of reporting that we're able to do on the Alertus side.
Okay, great. In the line of work that my peers in security, safety, business continuity, critical event management is, when the rubber hits the road in an event, we really need great customer support sometime. Can you describe how your customer support works?
I'll go ahead and start with that. Scylla is a software as a service. So we're server-based. So every time that we have a new customer or a new partner, we give them a custom support portal. So they get full access to go out and research solutions on their own, and they can find collaterals there that are pertinent to them. And we also have a direct link to our engineering that is available for support 24/7. And whenever there is an issue, being software as a service, our guys can remote in, usually within minutes, definitely within hours, and resolve any issues that arise or make any custom changes that customers want. So we have full access 24/7 for that support.
Yep, and from the Alertus perspective, we also have a dedicated support team. We do have prioritized support depending on the particular application, but absolutely we have folks that are there dedicated in supporting anything that were to arise, whether that is an incident or questions, concerns, where they're able to support you on resolving those.
And you guys offer like demo unit, pilot, or proof of concept? You know, I'm big on pilots and proof of concepts.
Yeah, so we do. Not every application obviously calls for that, but certainly in certain applications where that is a request, we look at that. We work with our sales engineering folks and the end user to scope that properly. but ultimately we do support on pilot or demo applications.
And the same for Scylla. Again, depending on the scope, we can do a on-premise proof of concept or demo, or we also have cloud-hosted demos that can be set up in, relatively quick, easy, and painless.
Okay, great. In the types of events that we're working with, they don't wait. Okay, they come at the worst time. We don't get a second chance, let's say, with an active shooter. My question is, how long does it take to implement Skyla and Alertus and the integration? And I know it probably depends on the size, but can you give us, let's say at the most aggressive, not a humongous organization, maybe you could give us a couple examples how soon we could get a system in.
Yeah, from the Alertus standpoint, we have applications that have been deployed a week to 2 weeks, but the most common deployment timeline is around 8, even 16 weeks, depending on the size and scope of the deployment. But it's really as quickly as the customer is able to move with their internal resources, since it is a network-based solution that resides on-prem. We do have some cloud applications that we can offer, but ultimately it does rely on some infrastructure and support on the customer side and getting that spun up. But as long as they have the people and resources in place, we can move as quickly as they would like.
And for us, it's much the same as what Amanda just described. We have a hosted in the cloud that can be set up, for quick POCs or smaller installations, or for when it makes sense. We set those up within hours, right? And if we have an on-premise solution, generally when we send out the server, it is all pre-configured, preloaded, ready to go. So it's just attached to the customer's network, and then we can remote in and configure. Depends on how many cameras. For a small installation, could be days. For larger, it could go weeks. If we're talking hundreds or thousands of cameras, so we can do it pretty quickly.
Okay, I think you partially answered my next question. Are your servers, Amanda and Kris, are your servers on site or in the cloud? And do we need a server for each of our sites, or can we centralize at least a few of the sites on one server?
From Scott,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so yes to all of those things. So for Alertus, we do offer on-prem or cloud-hosted solutions. We also have, if you are in either of those avenues that your organization wants to go down, we have the ability to offer clustered or paired environments so that you don't necessarily have to have a server instance at each location. It can be more of an enterprise-wide network. Now, if you do have a number of locations, depending on the network infrastructure and what that communication is going to look like between locations, our team will recommend, a warm spare as well as potentially clustered offerings. But absolutely, you don't have to have a server instance per location, and it is able to be offered on-premise or in the cloud.
And from Skyla's perspective, we're designed to be a truly enterprise solution. So if we are hosted in the cloud, we are cloud agnostic. So we work on AWS, Google Cloud, Azure. It doesn't make any difference to us. And for on-prem solutions, we can have a central server and distribute that over their WAN for multi-location. So it all depends on the customer's network, how to set that up. We can distribute, have servers put out locally at each site, or one central server managing the entire organization or operation.
Great, great. For both of you, we already own one of your solutions. If we buy the other solution, can we easily integrate them?
Yes, very easily integration, very easy integrated.
Okay, okay. And final question, and then I want to just talk about something else for a couple minutes. We're right on time. As a customer, will we have the opportunities to suggest future enhancements? Are you customer centric?
Yeah, I'll start, but I think this mirrors each other's response. But ultimately, Alertus, we are the manufacturer of all of our hardware and software solutions. Therefore, all of our development is in-house. So a large majority of our customer feedback goes into our development plans, whether that's short-term or long-term, whether that's feature-centric or integration requests. You know, we really do align our development roadmap based on customer feedback and highly encourage that, request it often. We do a lot of beta testing as well, and especially if it is a new feature or something that it was at a customer request, so that it is being built to their needs. So we are able to, you know, do some of those things on a granular level for a single entity and or something that's going to benefit the greater majority.
And from Scylla, we're much the same. We own all of our technology. We do not OEM, private label, anything. It is all ours. We're the manufacturer of all of our engines, all of our features, functionalities. So we can, you know, our products are designed from customer feedback and suggestions. So, you know, we can only envision so much how we think it's going to be used in the real world, but that feedback is actually valued, you know, so we will design it based on how our customers want to use it.
Okay, perfect, perfect. That takes us to our question, through the questions. There is something that's really important. You know, leadership has to sign off on this often. And, you know, I know that sometimes there could be a challenge, although I will tell you from personal experience, and I've brought in a lot of critical solutions. If you bring in a great solution and you knock it out of the park, and I'm talking about something like a digital transformation type of a system that we're talking about now, and I will tell you, your leaders, no matter what kind of company you're in, I'm sure manufacturing, logistics, doesn't really matter, financial, the mandate is usually right now that we're going to digitally transform, which this is obvious, like a very aggressive digital transformation. You know, you're saving lives. You guys are the professionals, really, often in talking to like the C-level. What do you think resonates with them when we approach them? How should we talk to the leadership? What should we be telling them? What hits home with them?
Well, obviously, you know, C-level people and organizations, they have to worry about the bottom line and return on investment. And Marty, I've heard you use the phrase that you can't put a cost on human life, right? But the answer is attorneys will. So, you know, we do have actual ROI. So when we were replacing the number of security guards maybe that an organization would need by having monitoring every camera in real time, you don't need as many security guards physically to go out and investigate something or be triggered on something that's going on. So, you know, you can use technology to increase the security, as well as what is the cost of saving lives, right? It's not what's the cost to save that life, but what's the cost not to, you know, cost to the organization, to the individuals involved, to the, you know, to the community or society in general.
Yeah, and there is always that thought, do nothing. And hey, people do that, and maybe they don't pay for it until something happens, and they do, and you never get a second chance at that. You know, and you know, people, a lot of leaders, I know they do it for the right reason and everything. But, you know, there's the other reason. If something happens, people they're going to be skeptical about being there if something tragic happens. And, you know, you might not be able to open for a long time. OSHA might shut you down. Of course, people are our number one consideration, but there is this bottom line type of a thing. Also, if you're well protected, people, you flip it around and people do want to work for those organizations that think about the people. And, on the internet, things spread very quickly. So that's the end of that. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, yeah, we can just, towards the end, next steps. So really the next section, we just briefly, all we want to talk about now, what are our next steps? What should we be doing? Couple final words from Amanda and from Kris. And then on the slide after that, we're going to have our contact information, our phone numbers. So Amanda and Kris, do you want to say what's best for next steps and any parting words?
Well, I'll go ahead and take that first then, Amanda. Reach out to us, talk to us. We're happy to work with anybody that wants to hear the message. We talked earlier about the financial cost of this, or what's the cost not to. Just about every camera manufacturer today includes embedded analytics with their cameras, and they include that at no additional cost. But a lot of times you get what you pay for, right? Those embedded analytics, they have limited processing power that's embedded in that camera, relies on that. And it's a software version that never gets any better. It is what it is. You maybe will get an update now and then. We call those the DVDs of analytics. You get that DVD, you watch the same movie again and again and again. And that's the same as the analytics in those. They don't always work so well. But we are server-based. We're using powerful GPUs to analyze all that video. And so we can be way more accurate. We can watch for way more things, and we are true computer vision and machine learning. So our installations gets better with time. So you get what you pay for with those embedded analytics. Oftentimes we are used to filter those alerts that are generated from those embedded analytics. For customers that want to talk about it, learn more, reach out to us direct. You can go to our website, skyla.ai. Or you can reach out to, I don't know if you're going to post our number, you can reach out to me or anybody on the team, or reach out to, I'm sure we'll post here how to contact us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from the Alertus standpoint, definitely appreciate everybody participating today. We are extremely excited about the opportunity and partnership with Scylla and the advantages it can bring customers as far as not just the detection, but the automated response, so that there is no time, wasted. So, please feel free to reach out to myself as well. We have a full team of members that support across all vertical segments and are experts in really scoping and learning more about your enterprise and organization and your processes and how Alertus can help enhance those. So look forward to the opportunity in terms of speaking with some of you potentially down the road, but ultimately appreciate your time spent today.
And for me, I get very excited about this because this is taking data, which I truly believe in, turning it into insights, turning it into life-saving opportunities. I often tell people that data is our second most important asset, and people are obviously our first most important asset. And what you just heard today is data helping people. So I love that, and I hope that you found this interesting. I'm so happy we were able to bring these two wonderful solutions to your attention. I want to thank you for attending, and everybody stay safe. Bye.
Thanks, Marty.
Thanks, everyone.